So in this video we are going to talk about model view controllers, in short MVC. So it's basically an architectural pattern that you can use while developing your backend applications. In this architectural pattern we basically separates our backend application into three main logical components: model, the view and the controller. So what is up people, welcome to the new video. And in this video we are going to talk about model view controller. So first of all, let's initialize our new backend application. We can say npm init y. So our package.json file is created. Now let's create quickly app.js file and now install our express. So we installed express. Now import it. Express require. So quickly we can listen to a port, let's say 3000, and for the message we can say console.log server is up and running. Then start our application using node app.js. Here on localhost 3000 port it is saying cannot get on this specific route, so we need to create a get request endpoint here. So let's say app.get on the home route, and let's say request and response. So let's send hello world as a response. Now let's see. So if we refresh we can see our hello world here, right? Instead of sending a direct response or a basic response, let's have some data to send as a response. So let's create some data, some dummy data. So let's say it is a list of basically JSON objects. We have some dummy data here, and if we send this data to our response, here we can say request.json, response.json, and we are sending our data to it. We go to our localhost 3000 home route, we can see our data here. So it is a JSON, right? So it is kind of a API we are building, and we are sending our dummy data to this home route, right? And so if you see, this is a basic thing like you can create using an express app. But what if your application scales up and your application has some more routes and more functionality and more logics? So you should separate your application into three components, like one is view and models and your controllers. So what are model and views? We will create our controllers here. So models are basically your database checks, like you are connecting to your database using models. Suppose you are using MongoDB or MySQL, whatever you are using. So if you need to fetch the data from a specific model from the database, so you will have some models here. So you can create a folder for model and you can say that models, right? So a specific folder will be here for your models. And the second component, you will have some views, right? So for views you should have a separate directory or folder for views. And the third component is basically controllers. So what should be inside controllers and models we are covered, and in views you can add whatever you want to send as a response to your client, right? And in this application we are sending this dummy data, so we can have this data. Okay, so we can say data.js, and let's copy this to here and export it. And we can import the data from views. Okay, so now it should work the same as it was working. And in this views folder we have our data, but suppose if you are using, or you are rendering some views like some HTML or any template engine, some like you can say Pug or EJS or an handlebars. So you can have those views here inside this views directory, and but for now we are having this data.js file here. So now if we need to scale up this project, like we can have more routes, so we should not keep all these routes here. Okay, so we can create a separate directory for routes, right? And in this we can say home route.js. Each JS file will have some routes for a specific home, like this have home route, and we will have, if we need to use some articles or some send some response like some products or some another data, so we can have those routes also. And if we have authentication to our application, so we can say auth routes here also, right? And for using our routes separately, we need to import our router. Okay, so you can say express. First we need to import express here. We can initialize our router, and we just need to export this router from this file, module.exports equal to router. Now we can use this router as our global app here, like as we were using this here. We just need, okay, so and here we can import our route, right? So how we can do that? We just say home route and require from routes home route, and here we can say app.use home route, and it will work same as it was working. And now it is saying data is not defined because in this home route we don't have our data, so we don't need our data here. Now we can use that here, and this path will change now, use and data. Now if you see, it will work the same. So now we have separated our application into two things like views and routes and models. If we have some models, we can use that models here. But now if we need to scale more our application, right? So we will use, how we can use the controllers. We will use for controllers for the main logic, like this is the logic. Okay, in this specific logic you can have some another functionalities, like you need to map some data and you need to import the data from database, or you need to create some database, right? So we will create home controller.js, and here we just create separate controllers, like we say get home route, and we can say async if we are using any asynchronous function here, so we can use asynchronous function. But if we are not using, we just say request response, and this will be a function, and this will export it by default, right? And here we say response.json, and what was our data, and we can import our data here now. Okay, so now inside our router we can import our main logic. You mean our main home controller, like every controller for every specific route we can import those here, like we say get home controller. Okay, so first let's say the path controllers home controller, and here what was the controller, get home route. And here we don't need to have this whole logic, we just say get home route. Okay, so if we go back to our application, so our application working is the same. So it is basically the whole idea behind using MVC, like model view controllers architecture pattern. So in this we basically separates our application into different components, right? So it will So what is the benefit of this? Our application will be more maintainable and more scalable, right? So everyone can see like, okay, everyone can understand your code. Okay, so these are the logics inside controllers and these are the main routes. So our routes will be also more cleaner and our views will be separated. So our everything will be separated into different components, logical components, right? So our application will be more scalable and more maintainable, right? So that's the whole idea behind model view controllers. And if you like the video, please hit the like button.